Sometimes it just takes one little event to hit a butterfly effect and to help other teams out. And the fact of the matter is that sometimes going into overtime for anything can be costly. In football, you rarely see that in a championship game like the Super Bowl, only having two overtimes ever in history. But overtime can change momentum. I mean, 1958, the greatest game ever played for football, ended in overtime on an Alan Amici plunge into the end zone. Basketball, we had lots of overtime drama, including Phoenix versus Boston 1976 that went to triple overtime and that tipped the series in Boston's favor. In baseball, well, overtime is called extra innings. The Texas Rangers twice had a chance to win the game in 2011 in Game 6 against the Cardinals, but fell thanks to David Freese's home run. And of course, in hockey, sometimes overtime can be good or bad depending on who you cheer for. But what if I told you there was a team in NHL history that did something that you never would have thought would happen? That's right. A team not only collapsed being up 3 games to 1 in a series, they lost the next 3 games in overtime. And yes, it's happened. This is the case about the 1993-94 Calgary Flames. Hello out there, we're on the air. It's Cutter, what if NHL time? Tensions blow, the whistle blown, and the pucks go down the ice. Some teams just want to win the cup and do it with a smile. Hey, that is cool. Up on the River Nile. Oh, the good old hockey game. Who will come out on top? Will a team get through the cup to the cup by any means necessary? Oh, the good old hockey game. It's the best game you can name. And I'm have no shame. I will simulate those hockey games. Woo! So the Calgary Flames as a franchise didn't start in Calgary. No, they started in Atlanta. And before you say anything, no, it's not the same Atlanta city that turned into Winnipeg. That Atlanta Winnipeg thing was the second time Atlanta lost a city. The first time Atlanta had a team was 1972. They wanted to bring hockey to the deep south. Of course, Texas and Florida and all those southern states didn't really have like major league hockey, like NHL level hockey. AHL probably. I don't really call California a deep south team, state. Nevertheless, the Atlanta Flames were decent. They had a good goaltending duel of Phil Meyer and Dan Bouchard. Some great players like Tom Lysiak, Guy Chouinard, and Bobby McMillan. But the Atlanta Flames had the misfortune of making the playoffs but never winning a playoff round. 1974, they got famously swept by the Philadelphia Flyers. And guess who scored the Game 4 overtime goal? One Dave the Hammer Schultz. I'm kind of doing this because I don't have an Atlanta Flames what if, so I got to go with the whole story. So anyway, Atlanta had a few other great playoff runs. 1979, they were expected to take care of the Toronto Maple Leafs in the preliminary round, but the Leafs swept them in the best of three. And in 1980, they lost to the Rangers in the first round, which meant that they were done. What Atlanta fans didn't realize was that it was a done deal that there would be hockey for hockey, NHL hockey in Atlanta. As they kept losing money, the playoffs didn't result much, and all of a sudden you're going to move. Thankfully, the city of Calgary, who got spurned for expansion teams in the NHL and actually had a WHA team at one time, managed to get the team and start a massive rivalry with Edmonton. Calgary in their first season as the Calgary Flames, they never changed the name, they just changed the logo. Took Philadelphia to 7 games and shocked them. The Flames were in the NHL semifinals in their first season of being in Calgary. But those pesky Minnesota North Stars took them out. Calgary would try to be good. They were known as the little sister of Alberta because Edmonton, the big brother, kept winning divisions and all that. Calgary would be trying to compete with Edmonton. They just couldn't get past Edmonton for the life of them. But then 1986 popped up, and it was an emotionally charged battle of Alberta in the division finals, or the conference semis as they're now known as. In Game 7, Calgary had 2-0 lead. Edmonton tied it up. And then all of a sudden, Steve Smith decided to go back in the zone and pick up a pass back from Grant Fuhr. He was looking for a cross-crease pass, but for some inexplicable reason, Smith bounced it off Grant Fuhr's pad and into the net. If you listen to the audio of that Steve Smith call, especially by Don Whitman, you can hear in the background some air horn. It could have, like a air horn and all that. It may have startled Steve Smith, but the cross crease pass did not work, and Steve Smith botched it, and the Flames won the game. The Flames would then go into the 1986 Stanley Cup Finals and get taken out in 5 games by rookie Patrick Roy. That 1986 thing was actually the only time that Edmonton faltered between 1984 and 1988. If Calgary did not get through on the Steve Smith play, then I think the Oilers would have won 5 straight cups and tied the Habs, who did that in the late 50s. Calgary would get their cup in 1989. They actually would avoid Edmonton in the playoffs. Edmonton almost faced Calgary, but thanks to LA coming back from 3-1 down, they take on the Flames. The Flames used their offense and all of that. Thanks to former Kitchener Ranger Al MacInnis, the Flames would win the 1989 Stanley Cup. Well, you know, yeah, Joe Nieuwendyk, Gary Robertson, many other people like Hawk and Loop, and Mike Vernon in the net. But yeah, the Flames won the Cup in 1989, and then got KO'd in the first round of 1990 by the Kings with Mike Krzyzewski's floating shot in overtime. Calgary marched on. They looked pretty decent. They had some great years, including 93, 94, which I will get to later. Calgary got a little known trade actually helped them. In the 2003-2004 season, a small trade with the San Jose Sharks for this guy named Mikhail Kiprusoff was supposed to be a small trade, and he was supposed to be the backup, a true backup to Roman Turek. Unfortunately for San Jose, Kiprusoff became a great goalie and one of the greatest Calgary goalies of all time, Ryan McVernon. So thanks to Kiprusoff and his heroics, and thanks to Martin Gelinas, who scored the game-winning goal in every round except for the Stanley Cup Finals, they did it. They had to take care of Vancouver in Game 7 in Vancouver with Gelinas, the ex-Canuck, sunk his former team. Of course, Leaf fans shudder at Martin Gelinas' name because he's the guy who scored the overtime goal in Game 6 of the 2002 Conference Finals that sunk the Leafs and prevented them from making the final. Gelinas was left wide open against the Red Wings in Game 6 of the second round, and he scored. And then he scored the ultimate winning goal against the Sharks to sink them, to get Calgary to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they lost in 7 to Tampa. They could have won in 6 games, but those Calgary Flames faltered. Of course, Game 6 is controversial because Gelinas appeared to score a goal, and the puck was across the line. In the air across the line, not on the ice. And strange as it sounds, ABC had the angle in which the puck kind of crossed the invisible line, and CBC didn't, which was unusual. Of course, they said that CBC's thing was the reason why they had to not give the goal. Anyway, Calgary got robbed. Martin St. Louis scored in double overtime, and then, of course, the Lightning won Game 7. Calgary has been fighting tooth and nail and all that. They've had some great moments, but Edmonton has been constantly in their way. And of course, we know Calgary was the former home of Matthew Tkachuk and Sean Monahan, among others. And of course, the former home to Johnny Hockey, Johnny Gaudreau. So basically, yeah, that was huge. But anyway, let's take a look at the 1993-94 Calgary Flames. So anyway, The 94 Flames was the 14th season in Calgary after moving from Atlanta. It was a season change. The Smythe Division would now become the Pacific Division and all that. A lot of people were mad because the divisions were named after the game's past, like Weston Adams, who was a legend for helping Boston out, the Patrick Division for James Patrick, the Smythe for Conn Smythe, and the Norris for James Norris. Anyway, realignment led to significant changes in the playoff format, as now it's the top 8 teams in each conference will qualify instead of the top 4 in each division. The Flames would do all that. And yeah, they played Vancouver in the playoffs. If the 1-4 system was in place, the Flames would have faced the Ducks, and the Mighty Ducks would have went into the playoffs in their first season. Yeah, it was such a blown idea and all that. 2 Flames went to the All-Star game. Joe Nundyke and Alan McGinnis. Catch it up! For the second consecutive season, 4 Flames reached 30 goals. Fleury, Ryko, and Roberts were 40 goal scorers. Prior to the season, Calgary lost 2 players in the expansion draft as Alex Godunyak, one of the players sent by the Leafs to Calgary for Doug Gilmour, was drafted by Florida, and Brian Skrudland went to Florida as well. Anyway, Calgary, yeah, under the new system, Calgary would have faced Anaheim, and Vancouver would have faced San Jose. Yeah, Calgary was 42, 29, and 13. The Sharks tied 16 times. I didn't know how bad that was. Yeah, the Sharks did their job. And the Calgary as the 2 seed would take on the 7 seed Vancouver. Now, of course, as you look at the standings, you see the Leafs with 98 points, and Calgary with 97. Think, wait a minute, Toronto's supposed to be in second place, right? Technically, yes, but unfortunately, the NHL said that the 2 division winners had to be 1-2, so that's why Calgary was 2, and not Toronto. Toronto would have faced Vancouver. Calgary would have faced Chicago. Anyway, the Flames looked good against the Canucks. They lost game 1, but won the next 3, and it looked like Calgary was going to move on. Unfortunately, though, they had some injury problems. The Canucks were tenacious and won the game for 3 overtimes. Anyway, yeah, I got to remember the order. I think it was Greg Adams in game 5. No, sorry, it was Jeff Courtnall in game 5, Trevor Linden in game 6, and then Pavel Bure in double overtime in game 7. Few people remember that. Well, people remember Bure's double overtime goal, but few people remember, unless you're from Calgary, the fact that Robert Reichel had a golden chance in overtime, the first overtime, to win the game, and then all of a sudden Kirk McLean came across the crease and stopped the puck with his pad. Like, it was an amazing kick save, one of the best kick saves in NHL playoff history and at TSN Turning Point. And of course, we can't forget about Don Whitman's call for Game 7. Brown ahead to Bure on the hole. He scores! Pavel Bure has won it for the Vancouver Canucks. It's a triple overtime hat trick for Vancouver. So, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, to blow a 3-1 seriously, and it's been done in the NHL prior to 94 and, of course, after 94. But to lose all 3 games in overtime is just crashing, and you had chances. Mike Vernon was the goalie and all that. I believe this was this the last year before he went to Detroit? I think it was. Yeah, I think so. Vernon then left for Detroit in free agency. Trevor Kidd had to take over. Calgary traded Sergei Makarov, who they had since he came to North America from Russia to Hartford. Calgary traded Craig Berube to Washington. Calgary traded Jeff Reese to Hartford for Dan Kazmar. And then at the trade deadline, they traded away Gary Sutter, Paul Redheim, and Ted Drury to the Whale. Yeah, to Hartford for Michael Nylander, James Patrick, and Sarli Slavsky. So that was kind of a big move. Yeah, James Patrick, who was traded from the Rangers to the Whalers. But yeah, Patrick and Slavsky. Anyway, Kelly Kissio signed with Calgary. Michel Petit went to LA. Okay, Roberts was draft picks. Calgary in the 93 draft pick had Jamie Allison in the second round, Marty Murray in the fourth round, Duran Titov in the 10th round. So yeah, so the 94 Flames burned out. Pardon the pun. Anyhow, let's find out what if Calgary did beat the Vancouver Canucks. How would that affect NHL history? Anyhow, the San Jose Sharks and the Calgary Flames would have been facing each other. Because earlier that day, well, April 30th, 1994, earlier in the day, San Jose, the 8th seed, shocked the 1 seed Red Wings after Chris Osgood failed to do a good clearing attempt. That's what happens in the Wild Wild West. Anyhow, the Sharks, because they were the worst possible seed, would take on the Flames, who were number 2 and the best possible seed. So the Sharks would have taken on the Flames. The Leafs would have played the Dallas Stars. So anyway, let's see if the Flames would have got past the Sharks. I think so. The Sharks would win game 1 5-4. Roberts scored first for Calgary, then Todd Elliott for the Sharks, then Field Fleury 2-1. Oselin would score not 1 but 2 goals in 40 seconds. Sanders Oselin would have a hat trick. All people. Todd Elliott made it 5-2, and they yanked Ferdinand. Roberts and Fleury would be. Okay, the Sharks would win the game. Travelov did well, but yeah, Todd Elliott the game-winning goal. Ratchy would be injured. Also Lynch, Roberts, and Fleury, the 3 stars. Okay. So with Ratchy hurt, they had to go to Jeff Norton to be the backup defender and all that. Game 2 sees the Sharks palpitate and go up 2-0 at the Saddledome, 4-1. As they would score with Dolan, Whitney, Alec, and Larionov. Larionov, that's right. Robert Reichel made it for the Flames. But yeah, Urbe, Larionov, and Makarov were your 3 stars. It hurt the Flames because, they got rid of Makarov in a trade. And then Makarov ends up on the Sharks and would try to destroy his former team. The team that got him the Calder Trophy for NHL's Rookie of the Year. Game 3 sees the Sharks win 6-5. The Sharks would win 6-5. Wow. Sharks scored Larionov and then Al McInnes. Catching her. Tied the game. Pat Falou made it 2-1. And the third period would be a clusterfuck. Ray Whitney scored to make it 3-1. Robert Reichel 3-2. Falloon 4-2. Fleury 4-3. Alex scored to make it 5-3. They got rid of Vernon. Reichel would score on the power play after Cronin got called for holding. And then after Cronin got unsportsmanlike, Field Fleury made it 5-5. However, Sean Cronin was in the box for holding. Not Sean Cronin. But somehow, a bad pass, Butseyev passed to David Malley. And David Malley scored to make it 6-5 Sharks. Man, that Sean Cronin guy. So many penalty minutes. He had 3 penalties. The Sharks gave up 2 goals on 2 power play goals and a shorthanded goal. And they scored shorthandedly. So anyway, Falloon, Fleury, and Reichel are your 3 stars. At Falloon, eh? So yeah, so Mike Ferdinand would be in that for game 4. You might as well. And in the end, the Flames won the game 6-3. So the Flames win. The Flames won to avoid being swept 6-3. 4 goals in the first period for the Flames. McInnes, Fleury, Solapsky, and Newendike. Norton made it 4-1. Solapsky made it 5-1, and then Jimmy Waite came in the net Falloon made it 5-2. Fleury 6-2. Makarov 6-3. All right, McGinnis, Slapsky, Fleury, the 3 stars. And to Calgary, Mike Radke would be back in net, back on defense. And it worked. And it worked. The Calgary Flames would have lost to the San Jose Sharks 8-5. The Sharks scored 5 goals in the first period, as Mike Vernon could not believe his luck as the Sharks put up 5 goals in Game 5. Larry Adolf, Makarov, Ellick. Can you believe it? Sergei Makarov gets released by Calgary in the offseason, and then the Sharks pick him up. Al McInnes made 5-1. Bob Erie made it 6-1. Then Pat Falloon made it 7-1. Ranheim 7-2. Al McInnes made it 7-5 for the hat trick. Paul Krause got ejected for cross checking, and then Oslynch made it 8-5, and that was it. The Calgary Flames made a weird comeback. They were down 7-1, made it 7-5. So the Sharks win in 5 games. So the Flames would have flamed out in the second round of the playoffs. It would have been Sharks Leafs, and I think the Leafs would have won to the Stanley Cup and faced the Rangers and lost. So yeah, so Calgary would have ended up falling, and the Sharks would have shocked everyone by getting to the third round. Oslynch, McInnes, and Makarov were your 3 stars, but man, the Sharks would have ended up winning the championship, the tournament, and Makarov would have been the hero against his former squad. So yeah, Calgary flamed out and all that. So yeah, the butterfly effect. The Leafs would have played the Sharks in this simulation, beat them. But yeah, the Sharks would have been for real. But Toronto would have gotten to them. So anything can happen. Anyhow, Jeff, I'm gonna do